I am not a mechanic. I don't do how-to videos. I do videos to let you see that somebody that doesn't know anything about anything can do this stuff and save yourself lots of money. Yeah, I grew up working on cars every now and then, but my working on cars wasn't in a garage. It was on the ground beside the house helping my dad. And I've had some technical jobs, which helps me out with some of this stuff, but this stuff is easy. And I'm going to show you a little bit of how I fixed my air conditioner. So my air conditioner went out a couple months ago, maybe even longer, but I hadn't missed it at all. It's been nice and cool. So when I took my truck in, I had a leak on the front cover, which is a huge job that you don't want to do out there in the driveway. I don't really have a place to pull it in my backyard to do that, but that's a huge job. That's 2 people a full day, if not more. You know, if any little thing goes wrong on those things, and you're taking more time and more time. So I decided to let somebody else take care of that. But here's what I do. When I put my truck in there, I said, hey, take a look at that air conditioner and tell me what you think is wrong with it. Which I knew something had flown through my grill and hit that condenser, but I didn't know at that point it poked a hole in it because there was no dye or anything that looked like it was coming out on that. But so when I got it back, the guy said, okay, there is a hole in the condenser, and I can buy an aftermarket part, and if I fix it for you, it's going to be anywhere between $1,000 and $1,200. Now this is not a dealership. This is one of the Shade Tree mechanics who's a very good mechanic, and they usually charge a lot less than the dealership. So I priced the condenser itself at the dealership, and it was $700. I bought it online for $98. I'm not going to go with the dealership. Not going to go with my Shade Tree mechanic. If it's a condenser, I can do this myself. And if I can't, I'm not out any money. Not to start off with, not much. But let me just show you here the old condenser. Okay, this is what we got here. This is the old condenser. Just goes right on the front of the radiator. Some trucks you can take the grill off. Mine would have been a headache, so I just leaned over to the front. All it has is 4 bolts. Super easy to take off, and like I said before, if you don't have these drills, these battery operated drills, you need to get some and get you a fitting, because they make working on trucks a lot easier. So just 4 bolts held that thing in. I had it off in a matter of minutes. But your pressure lines from the AC comes in up here, and it just usually has a stud there, and it just one little nut holds that thing on, and the outline comes out of here. Basically the same thing, little O-ring on that. But this one, like I said, something came through my grill and hit it right there, and that's where it was leaking. So I bought this part for, like I said, 98 bucks. I took this part out, put the new part in a matter of 30 minutes or less, actually. So from that point on, all I had invested in this was $98 and a little time. What I did next would prove whether or not that was the whole issue, and that is pulling a vacuum to see whether or not it's going to hold air or leak out Freon. So the parts you need for this are right here. Okay, here are the 2 things that you need to be able to test your AC system. You need a manifold, and you need a vacuum. This vacuum, I bought a lot of stuff at Harbor Freight. People don't like it. Cheap stuff, but man, you take care of it, it lasts and it works. This vacuum cost, I think it was 65 bucks. This manifold, I can't remember exactly how much it was. It's like around $85, something like that. But I'll show you real quick how I use this thing, and it's real super simple. Okay, so what you have here is your manifold. I just have these sitting up there just for illustration purposes. you have a low side and a high side. And this is going to be whether you're doing this on a car or your APU, low side and high side. This also has a valve right here. You can close this and this. Same goes right here. Obviously it corresponds, low side, high side, and your gauges. Now you have a yellow hose, which when you're going to do a vacuum, you hook this end up to the vacuum. Now this is a little attachment for the cans of Freon. So you would hook this up to the vacuum, turn your vacuum on, and watch this gauge. It's got some pressure on it right now. I've still got a little Freon in that line, but you would watch this gauge go from 0 and pulling mercuries back. You know, I got close to 30. And once that's done, I closed these valves and I left it there, and I watched, well, I closed this valve, these valves, and I left it there and I watched that pressure. I left it like that for probably 30 minutes. That needle didn't move any, which let me know that the repairs, the replacement of this condenser worked. Let me show you. So we're at the front, you know, under the hood. I don't know if you can tell, but like I said, 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, if I can get it. And you have the in and the out. Super easy. So pulling the old one out, putting the new one in probably took 30 minutes. I also, in the process of doing this the first time, I found another leak when I was trying to pressure it up with Freon, and I had to replace that hose, which that's just another, you know, it's another easy part. That one was, I saw it when it happened. Wasn't a big deal to find and replace. But all right, so you've got your lines hooked up, you've got a vacuum on it, and you know that it's sealed, there's nothing leaking. Leave that vacuum on there for, I don't know, an hour. Then come back out here and hook up this attachment, screw on your bottle of Freon, open it up. And the one thing that you don't want to do is introduce any air. So you've got some air in this yellow hose. And since you have your valves closed right now, it's not going into the system. So what you can do is pull this off, and it has a valve right here, kind of like that's on your tire. You can see that. And you just, see, I've still got a little pressure and a little Freon in there, but just push that until all the air purges out and you only have a little Freon coming out. And after you do that, you go crank up your truck, turn your AC on, and then open this valve, and the Freon that you have hooked up here will start flowing in there. That first can is going to go in pretty quick, and you'll start to see the pressure rise over here. Keep this high side closed. You don't want to pump Freon in that high side. And you'll go through however many you're supposed to put in here. Somewhere on your truck, probably there's a tag saying, yeah, this one is right there. I don't know if you can see it. It tells you how many pounds, how much Freon to put in your system. So you put however many pounds it says to put in your system. Mine probably took 30 minutes to add the Freon. And once I was done, just disconnected the hoses, and as you can see, once I disconnect them, they still have the pressure on these hoses because I have the valves closed there, there, and there. And that was it. That is it. Super easy. Like I said, the only other thing, first time I tried to pressure this up, this hose right here coming off the top of the compressor, I heard something pop. And as you can see, the old hose is right there. Heard something pop, and I saw the dye coming out there, so I knew it was that hose. Ordered that, got it here the next day, replaced it. As you can see, it's a tad bit shorter than the first one, but it works. But then once I did that, replaced that hose, I started all over. I pulled the vacuum, made sure there were no leaks, put my Freon in there. You know, there's nothing to it. Like most things, it's a matter of just starting something. I had no idea how to do any of this stuff. The only thing I'd ever done to an air conditioner before was buy those those bottles you get at the truck stop to charge your AC up a little bit. That's all I'd ever done before. I didn't know anything about this stuff, but it works, and feels pretty doggone good. I saved by doing this myself. I bought these tools, which I'll have now if I want to do this again, which cost a little under $200. I bought about, what was it, about $50 worth, well $60 worth of Freon, and an air dryer and a condenser. So even after buying all that stuff, I still saved myself $800. That's over the Shade Tree Mechanics cost, not the dealership. I probably saved well over $1,000 from what the dealership would have charged me. But I didn't know anything about this stuff. I just did it. Some of these things you get into, you can't fix it. You can't figure out what's wrong with it. You know, if at the point that I replaced this condenser and I still couldn't figure out where the leak was, I wasn't out anything. If anything else, I replaced the condenser, which I knew was bad, so they wouldn't, you know, if I take it in the shop now to get it fixed, they would have less to do and less to charge me for. So don't be afraid to do these things. The front cover on this thing, like I said, it had an oil leak, and that is a pretty big job. You have to take the whole front of that motor off, gears, everything. And so while I had him doing that, I just had him also replace my gasket on the oil pan and do it all at once, and so I wouldn't have to mess with it. That's a big job. I don't have a place to, I'm not going to do it in my driveway. I live in a pretty nice neighborhood. I don't even like doing these little jobs in the driveway, but if I can, I'll do them. And same thing goes with doing oil changes. I've said this over and over. Oil changes are one of the easiest things you can do. Not only do you save money on the oil changes, but you save lots of time. I can pull my truck up here, do an oil change, and lube my truck in an hour. In an hour, I'm done. Save myself almost $200. But think about that. In 1 hour, I'm done on my time. If you take it to a TA, Petro, Speedco, anything like that, Speedco is usually pretty quick. But when you pull up there, you're waiting. Sometimes, you know, especially at TA Petro, you might be on their waiting list, and they might call you back, and it might be 3 or 4 hours. And then the technician, you don't know what those guys are doing. You know, like I said, it takes me less than an hour to do the full oil change, and I don't have the easiest way to do it like they do. You know, they have that little tunnel they can crawl down in, get under your truck, makes things easy for them. I don't have that, but still, I can find all those Zerk fittings, do my lube job, replace the oil, save myself lots of money. Those guys those technicians, sometimes it takes them 2 or 3 hours, and I've never been able to figure out why, other than, you know, maybe they're on their phone or they're trying to help other people. But, you know, it should never take that long, especially when you have a guy that's doing it over and over and over. They should have it down pat. But anyway, these things, sometimes they're hard to do. The learning curve, you know, learning what to do, the little technical pieces, so that, you know, I think the big thing is people are afraid they're going to mess something up. And yeah, I wouldn't tackle anything if you don't have any mechanical experience. I wouldn't tackle anything like trying to do an overhead, or, you know, anything where you have to break a seal on the motor. If oil is going to leak out, that's something I would not try to do. I might. I've done that stuff before, a few times, but I didn't know what I was doing when I was going into it. But I learned a lot while I was doing it. I don't know what's the matter with this camera. But don't be afraid to take something apart. You know, this air conditioner, if I messed it up, my truck can still go down the road. An oil change, you know, there's nothing to that. replace your oil, replace your filters. Now the lube part of that's something you might have to learn how to do. It's a little bit of manual labor on that thing, but there are lots of projects on this truck that people won't even consider doing, so they have to take a week off of work, turn this thing into one of these dealerships, and wait for the dealership to call them and tell them what's wrong with it and how much it's going to cost. And when in reality, if I take this over to my shade tree mechanic, yeah, he'd probably taken half the day to do the AC. I found a new mechanic, he's really good. Taking half the day to do the AC, and it would have been done right. But now I've got $800 in my pocket instead of his, and now I'm far more familiar with it. If something goes wrong with it while I'm going down the road, I'll have an idea of how to fix it, and I have the tools now to charge it up or help somebody else charge theirs up. So don't be afraid to do these things. Like I said, this is not a how-to video. I'm not a mechanic. I'm just trying to prove to you that even if you don't know how to do it, the hardest part is just getting started. After that, it's all downhill.